Hey there everyone, it's David Barnett once again. This time I've got a viewer question from Ramon about local investing. And Ramon wants to know, how can I boost yield on an investment note, so a loan or a lease that I do with someone, without affecting the face price or the face yield? So the amount that we put on the note as the amount being lent, or the interest rate that's sort of put on the note as the interest rate being charged. Let's look at a couple of different examples, and I'm going to start by putting a simple note up on the board. All right, so if we look at the board, what I've done is I've illustrated a very simple loan note. So the present value, I put -1,000, because don't forget, we're looking at this from the point of view of a lender. So $1,000 goes out of my pocket on the day that the deal is done. N is 12, so this is a 12-month note. My interest or yield, depending on which side of the transaction on. If you're a borrower, it's interest. If you're the lender, it's your yield, is 10%. And future value is always 0. At the end of the 12 months, the loan is fully paid off. Now, the payment came from putting the numbers into my calculator. And my calculator was set automatically for what we call the end mode, or it's the difference between what's called an annuity and an annuity due. So for example, a mortgage, you get to live in the house for a month, and at the end of the month you pay for that month you have borrowed the money. That's an end mode calculation on your calculator. The rent on an apartment, for example, is the opposite. You pay rent on the first day of the month in order to be able to live in the apartment for the month. So the payment is made at the beginning of the period. So to answer Ramon's question, the very first thing that you can do in order to increase the yield on your note is to change the terms of the agreement from, instead of paying at the end of the period, you pay at the beginning of the period. So by changing my calculator, that would mean that the day you made the loan, the first payment would be due. And if we left the payment the same, what that does when I put it into my calculator is it actually boosts the yield to 11.87%. So why is that 11.87%? Well, in the traditional calculation where you're paying at the end of every period, your $1,000 would be out with the borrower for a total of 12 months, and you would get your last payment at the end of the 12th month. In the begin mode, where people are paying at the beginning of each period, your money is actually only out there for 11 months and 1 day. So it's not out there for as much time, but you're still collecting just as much money, which means that your yield has been boosted. Now, some of the things that I'm going to be explaining to you in this video today are how you would do these things, but here's what you have to be careful of. If you're going to do one of these deals with an individual, a lot of consumer protection laws with respect to predatory lending specifically forbid these kinds of things. But they are rampant and everywhere in the world of small business lending. And maybe some of these tips and tricks you're going to recognize from deals that you've done from the borrower side of the table. Let's take a look at a different trick that we can do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset all of these variables in my calculator, and I'll be back in just a second. All right, I've got my variables reset in my calculator. Basically, to increase yield, what we have to do is figure out ways to either decrease N or decrease the present value. So we're either going to lend out less money, or we're going to lend it out for a shorter period of time, but still collect the same payment, and what that's going to do is increase our yield. So here's another example from the world of leasing. Let's say you go to lease a piece of equipment, and it's $1,000 over 12 months at 10% interest. But what they do is they say, we're going to need you for security reasons to make the last 2 payments in advance. How does that change these variables? Well, we've got 87.92 times 2 gives 175.84. So if we have to give the leasing company 175.84, what that really means is that they've given less money, right? So what they've really put out at the beginning is actually only $824.16. Okay? And they're going to collect that money for only 10 payments because we've given them the last 2 payments in advance. So let's see what this does to our calculation. I'm going to set that as my present value. 10 is now my end. Compute my yield. And the yield, ladies and gentlemen, jumps to 14.32%. Because less money is crossing the table to the borrower, it's being paid back in a shorter period of time because we made the last 2 payments in advance. But that original payment was based upon 12 months and $1,000. So what ends up happening is the yield is moved up substantially to 14.32%. Let's look at another way that we could do it. And let's see if you've ever encountered this before. Instead of requiring 2 payments in advance, let's say you're doing a loan or a lease and you say, I'm going to have to hold a $200 security deposit, which I will return to you once the lease contract is paid in full. So what then have we done? Well, our payment is still $87.92. We're still going to collect that for 12 months, but they're not actually lending us $1,000, are they? They're lending us $800, or we're lending them $800. So let's put this into my calculator. So I'm going to clear. So I've got $800. Oh, that should be negative because money's leaving our hands. Is my present value. 12 is my number of periods. 87.92 is my payment. And if I compute my rate of return, 54.45%. Amazing, isn't it? What you can do just by changing the terms. So a lot of the times when people get into, for example, leasing agreements in small business, they'll be quoted a payment based on the equipment they want to obtain. And then after they've been quoted the payment and they've made the application, the leasing company comes back and says, you know, we checked your credit, etc. We'd still like to do the deal, but we're going to ask for a security deposit. And what the impact of that is that it reduces the amount of the initial amount of the loan, but they still collect the same payment over the same amount of time. So they're bringing in a lot more money on a much lower investment. And so, Ramon, I hope that answers some of your questions. Again, in a lot of jurisdictions around the world, if you try to do this kind of thing with an individual, you will run afoul of consumer lending, predatory lending type protections in law. But in a lot of cases, those types of laws don't apply to business because business people are assumed to be sophisticated consumers and they know what they're doing and they know what deals they're getting into. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you guys want to see more of these time value of money calculator type videos, just let me know because I know the ones that I've done have been quite popular and I do love answering questions about local investing. Don't forget to join my email list and we'll talk to you later. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. That's great. Don't forget, visit www.investlocalbook.com. Sign up for my email list. It's right down here under the welcome video. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.